This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
So, thank you so much for debating. Do you believe that democracy is important?
Yes.
So, are you aware that the freedom of expression and opinion is not an absolute right and can be compromised for the benefit of society and the people themselves?
No.
You don't believe that? Okay, meaning you don't know the Constitution too either. So, as I proceed, if the government is working for the benefit of the people, is it leaving them out? If the government is working for the benefit of the people, is it leaving them out?
No.
Are you aware that the UN itself that recommends that there is a right of freedom of expression also sets limits to which it can work? Thank you so much. You can rest your case. So, dear House, our resolution of today's debate has been the recent increase in internet censorship and social media restrictions in Uganda undermines democracy. So the question of today's debate has been, does the recent increase in social media restrictions and internet censorship actually undermine democracy or not? Something that Team Affirmative failed to prove today's debate is that there is at any point where democracy is undermined by this recent increase in internet censorship and social media restrictions. What Team Affirmative presented in today's debate are simply assumptions of what even the critiques over social media actually have. Because in actual sense, we all know that whenever internet censorship and social media restrictions were being carried out, it was because at that time it was necessary for them to happen. During the time of 2021 elections, where we actually had riots, there was need for internet censorship to actually happen because there was wrong information being spread. So there was actually a justification at that moment for the government to actually carry out internet censorship. This shows that the government actually cares for democracy and ensures that it is better that wrong information is not spread at any moment. If Team Affirmative was talking about freedom of expression no matter what, then that freedom of expression, even according to the UN, is limited in case it encroaches on other people's human rights, in case it involves hate speech, which actually most of the people over social media, most of the critics, most of the opposition members were actually using. So at the end of the day, even this hate speech being restricted, being limited by internet censorship is actually a way of promoting democracy according to the UN. It seems Team Affirmative also failed to understand throughout the whole debate that at the end of the day, every country is entitled to do whatever it can to ensure that the principles of democracy, that is transparency and accountability, that human rights are protected, that people's rights are kept well accorded to. That means every country, depending on your population, depending on the nature of your people, can do whatever it takes to protect those people's rights. That is what a democratic government actually does. And that's what the Ugandan government has been doing throughout all this time through increasing internet censorship. There was a need for internet censorship to actually increase. That's why it increased. We all know that political instabilities have been happening. From day to day. And many people are falling prey to wrong information. And therefore, there was need for the government to stop this from running bad. Because if information about the president's death could actually have happened and people were actually believing it, then you can see how wrong information can actually cause political instability actually taking place. So there was need for the government to actually put in place increase internet censorship and social media restrictions. And in no way did that at any moment undermine democracy. In fact, if you have to look at democracy, it actually promoted it because it was keeping security, it was keeping national peace, and it was protecting the rights of the people. One thing we should note is at the end of the day, the increasing internet censorship and social media restrictions at no point undermines democracy.
My first question is, who determines what's wrong? What's wrong information?
Who determines what's wrong information?
Yes.
The government.
Thank
and
you.
Those
you
in authority.
There. Define increasing.
Increasing, happening at a higher rate every time.
Than ever before. Thank you. Can increasing censorship limit freedom of expression?
Limit freedom of expression. Freedom of expression itself is limited in case it crosses its limits.
So censorship can limit?
No, it's already limited. What censorship does what...
Okay. Does increasing censorship lead to increased limitation of expression?
Pardon?
Does increase in censorship lead to increase in the limit to which one can express him or herself?
Censorship strictly limits wrong information,
yes
and that's
no?
what it does.
I'm saying, does increase in censorship lead to increase in the limitation of expression, yes or no?
Limitation of expression,
Okay,
that
give
is
me
necessary.
give me examples of wrong information you've spoken about.
The death of the president, which wasn't right.
Is accountability among the principles of democracy that you have stated?
That's why the government comes out to justify every time it carries out
Thank you so
internet
much.
censorship.
Did you also say that
transparency and accountability is.
you are censoring to block hate speech?
Yes.
Is there hate speech right now?
It has been there, but it's being fought.
Has it been increasing from the period we stated as recent, from 2015 up to date?
Yes, because we have more bloggers like Lumwi and many other people in case
Did you give us statistics?
That is your burden. As team affirmative.
No, you are saying that the increasing hate speech is the one that is causing the what? The increase in censorship. So did you give us statistics of increasing hate speech?
Hate speech
Yes
is already
or no?
there.
If
And
you
if you're
give us
not
a
aware
yes.
as team affirmative, that's a very big problem.
Okay,
because
thank
you
you so
can't
much.
write something you don't know.
Thank you so much. Resolved. The recent increase in internet censorship and social media restriction in Uganda undermines democracy. Dear Judge, I'm going to go to the main clash points. I'm first going to address the questions that we have asked Team Negative. Team Negative, we asked them a question that says, if there has been increasing hate speech. They say yes. But dear Judge, in all the speeches of Team, we realize that their reference point is 2021 general election, where they claim that there was incitement of violence by the supporters of Honorable Kyagulanyi. But dear Judge, from our definition of the term recent, we stated a time period from 2016 up to date. So dear Judge, for them they're basing on one incident, they're not clearly referring to the pattern affirmative already created. For us, we have shown them that, yes, if you are saying that there was violence in 2021, have you proven to us that still there was violence in 2016 so that you blocked the internet? Dear Judge, this is where we need to draw the red line, dear Judge. If they can prove to us that indeed in 2016 also, because we did not forget to define for you recent, we had a reason as to why we did that. So dear Judge, Team Negative is trying to blindfold this house. Dear Judge, Team Negative also says that for them they are actually rooting for democracy. Now they say that the freedom of expression is not absolute. For us in this debate, we want to ask, have they given us statistics to show that there is increasing hate speech, there is increasing violence on social media to warrant the increasing censorship? That is what we need to ask ourselves. For them, they simply come and tell us of one incident. That means that alone cannot warrant what? Increasing the censorship on internet. What about the previous times, dear Judge? We are drawing a pattern, dear Judge. Dear Judge, I want to continue and say that Team Negative came and said that for them they are rooting, actually it is promoting democracy because they are reducing the spread of wrong information. Now, we ask them a question. Before we increase this, was there hate speech? They said yes. So with that, I rest my case.
This resolution needed a Team Negative to actually come up and say, no, the recent increase and internet censorship is justifiable, and hence it does not undermine democracy, which is what they did. Now, in Team Affirmative, first and foremost, saying that the recent undermines democracy. They looked at democracy to do with human rights. They looked at the freedom of expression, participation, representation, accountability, access to information, which is right. That's I've advised you next time. At least look at the Constitution and you look at the laws that provide for this. Then, we had a Team Negative that actually their main point was, one, all the rights that you have talked about are not absolute rights. Meaning these are rights that can be compromised by the government as long as they are compromising them for public safety and security. This is a point that went unattended to by the entire affirmative. It was a matter of you, for example, just coming and say, no, if you're saying they can be limited, okay, if we look at the recent limitation, is actually the government limiting them for public security or the government is limiting them for their own benefit? Number two, they came up and actually talked about Article 44. Now, this is just to hope you understand this. Article 44 of the Constitution provides for rights that can never be limited. I've not said that I've punished you for this, but I'm just educating you. Article 44 of the Constitution provides for rights that can never, actually we call them non-derogable rights. These are rights that can never be limited at any point of time by the government, which they actually came up and said that actually the freedom of expression and all the access you're talking about does not fall under Article 44, meaning the government can compromise. That was went unattended to. This limitation, for example, if you're looking at the closure of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it was not limited to a specific group of people. You people as Team Affirmative, you came as the opposition. They told you it was a general limitation that even the president himself was limited from accessing the same. Now, for me, this is what I based on. Ladies and gentlemen, I will advise you, never come to debate with just a crammed kind of speech. You know that you are just going to be based on what you came up with. At the end of the day, yes, based on what you came up with, but never fail to rebut what your opponents say. Now, in today's resolution, Team Affirmative, you did not refute any loopholes or any counter-argument that was provided by Team Negative to your entire case. You all came up and just kept on emphasizing the case you have, But what about the point that these are not absolute rights? These are rights that can be limited.
Affirmative team, you cannot open a wide door and then blame someone for walking right through it. You cannot say that your definition of recent is 2016, 2021, and until today, and you say that in all this they have only debated 2021. There's a reason you put it in your debating premises, right? So it's not a good strategy to say that of this big thing that I've shown to you, you have identified one fault and you don't solve the one fault I've identified, because the only reason for them to win a debate is if they have negated your case. And that reason is not that they have to negate all of it or entirely. As long as they can show us that there is fault within your case, they stand chance to win the debate. So it's not a good strategy as an affirmative speaker to say that you see of this big case that we have presented, there's only one fault that has been identified. Solve that fault. Show us that it does not even subsist. Number two, there's a whole argument that these are not absolute rights. So I felt you could do an in-depth analysis again to delve into so much how censorship of the social media can affect what we call non-derogable rights. So there you have examples of people like Kakwenza who have delved on social media to speak things and they have been tortured for those things. That's also a form of censorship. So if you take the argument to that, you can say by censoring people, we are actually affecting non-derogable rights, and you have them on absolute rights. You're telling them that clearly by your censoring, we have a point where we cross the line that you're saying you can legally cross.
The gist of the matter of this debate was, is censorship affecting democracy? Is it undermining democracy? And Team Affirmative, you come up with principles of accountability, principles of representation and participation. Team Negative comes up with principles and it redefines something you do not rebut. It redefines their understanding of democracy. It tells you that for them, they are looking at the rule of law that protects national security and human rights. Now, in their mission of human rights, yeah, and then you are coming up basing on your entire argument on violation of human rights, and you do not point that out in their entire definition. Now, moving on. In your entire argument of accountability and representation, Team Affirmative, you come up and give us a very beautiful analysis, starting with the OTT, going on with Bobby Wine, Robert Chagulanyi, going on with 2021 and 2016 elections. However, basing on your fourth affirmer's speech, mentioning of a trend and a pattern, since you are talking about recent and increase, do you really think as Team Affirmative, apart from blaming Team Negative, do you think you fulfilled that role as Team Affirmative? Did you show a causal link and a trend that, you know what, undermining censorship undermined democracy? Now, Team Affirmative comes up and tells you, you know what, it did not undermine democracy, because they've told you their principles are national security and what? And rule of law, public order. They come up and justify censorship, something that Team Affirmative, according to my opinion, you do not rebut or you do not look at. However, Now, in my opinion, I feel like Team Affirmative, you failed in your entire justification of showing to us that what? Censorship is actually undermining democracy. And also you fail in your interpretation of the resolution by stating for us that Team Negative should have given us an alternative to what? Internet censorship. So I gave Team Affirmative 57 and Team Negative 60. It's a unanimous decision that Team Negative takes the day.